can be quite a really harsh process, deconverting. It can be terrible.
And one of the things that we see undeniably within some people who leave religion, who identify as atheists, is they often fall into nihilistic kind of, I wouldn't say often, occasionally fall into. Some of us don't have any issue with that at all. And so it's not I'd never pretend that there's no problems or anything else. First of all, I don't go door to door. Hey, have you stopped believing in Jesus yet? I can fix that. We take incoming calls, so we're having conversations with the people that want to.
Yeah.
And I think that if all we're doing is actually questioning the reasoning behind a belief, in the same way that truth is always a defense to slander, that's what we're engaged in. How much responsibility, if somebody gives up their religion because of what I said, and they have negative consequences because of that, how much of that am I responsible for? This is something that I've considered quite a bit. What I find is that the people who end up suffering the negative consequences, the core problem there still goes back to religion. It's like if somebody told you when you're 30 you're going to inherit $1 billion, and you get to be 30 and you find out you're wrong. Now your life may be crap from that point on, because you may have lived as if you were going to inherit $1 billion and you didn't. You may have built up expectations and changed your fundamental perspective on the world, so that once it's not true, you're now miserable, maybe you're bankrupt and everything else. But it's not learning that you did not inherit $1 billion that was the problem. It was the false promise of $1 billion at the beginning that was the problem.
Yeah. I mean, I guess from your perspective as well as a Christian, Glenn, you don't want people to be Christians just because of the benefits it brings in terms of, the community and the lifestyle and the psychological well-being. So you're interested in truth as well, just
Absolutely.
as much as Matt.
Yeah.
What if we found out the happiest way to be was just to be high on heroin all the time?
Right.
We do know there's
rat in a cage with it.
We do know there's big negative consequences that long term, so I don't think that's likely as a possibility.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it needs to be existentially grounded. I think it needs to be true in order to live out that life. Because, life is a wager. I am constantly, I don't mean this in the religious sense at all. Life is an act of faith. I step out into the world not knowing what's going to hit me. Am I going to open myself out to the world in a certain way that will make me vulnerable, that will make me weak, that could get me attacked, but in another sense it could help people. All of life is a venture of faith, and if it's not true, then I'm a fool, and I think Christianity is a venture to be in Jesus and with Jesus, extending my arms out to the world the same way that he was in sacrificial love. If God is not on the other side of that, raising me up again, which is the Easter story, cross and resurrection, then I am to be pitied more than all men, which is what the Apostle Paul says in 1 Corinthians 15. So I absolutely believe that we have common cause on this one. It must be true, but if it is true, I think that is what explains its workability.
Right.
There are some people, I've done debates online with people who are very much atheists in the mold of Jonathan Haidt and David Sloan Wilson, and
who see the usefulness of religion.
Right. It's metaphorically true. So which is true enough. And really, the debates we seem to have had, they seem to have been saying, well, to live this way, i.e., in this moral way, works, therefore it's true. And I kept on saying, well, no, I think it's true, and therefore it works.
Right.
And I think that's where I come to with that brand of atheist. I do think you need to ground it in what is actually true about the world. But I think an inference to the best explanation for why it is that religion actually does work in the world is that it is true.
Matt says that you need to give secular humanism a chance. It hasn't had a long time to actually get going and create community, and potentially you will see all the same benefits accrue to someone who simply says, well, that's my way of finding meaning in the world. I don't have to have a religious
I don't know if
outlet.
I'd say.
Oh, maybe you wouldn't. Well, what would you say?
I come pretty close. Okay. So one of the things is when Jordan Peterson and I sat down, I pointed out that there's never been a secular humanist government, and he tried to say that the Soviet Union was, and he just doesn't understand what secular human is. That wasn't secular humanism. That was basically state-enforced atheism, and was very much anti-religion. And so if we're going to use the language, we can certainly separate the types of things that we would put in a bucket as religiosity. Maybe it's a sense of awe. Atheists can have a sense of awe. Maybe it's the notion that there's something that may be greater than the self that you might want to consider yourself with. I think so. I think there are concepts truth and freedom. I think that, the society that I benefit, that I'm also a part of, needs to be considered. You can't be myopic when you're looking at something like well-being and just say, well, this benefits me. Who cares what it does to anybody else? Because we're intertwined. But there were a couple, to kind of go back to something that Glenn mentioned, I would agree that